Today we are going to talk about Zhang Da-CHUN. Zhang Da-CHUN is quite famous. He's a very famous writer in Taiwan. So any class of modern Taiwan fiction cannot ignore Zhang Da-CHUN. So I choose one of his most important novella or story of urban fiction. That is Wild Child. But it's selected from a story collection named Wild Kids. And it has two novellas. One is My Kid Sister, and the other is Wild Child. So we are going to focus on the second novella in the story collection. Okay. So the title for today's lecture is Zhang Da-CHUN and the Wild Kids in the urban world. Okay, this is Zhang Da-CHUN. I think maybe you have a lot of chance to see him on the media. And Zhang Da-CHUN, he was born in 1957 in Taipei City, but his father was from Shandong province. Okay, so just from the year in which he was born, you can see that he's a very important urban fiction writer, because during the early 1980s and the early 1990s, that is one of the most active periods of Zhang Da-CHUN's literary creation. At that time, he was still in his early 20s and early 30s. So you can see that he wrote a lot about urban fiction. But we also know that he wrote a lot of works on science fiction and political fiction, and even martial art fiction. Okay, so he's a very versatile writer in Taiwan. Okay, and he's not like many of the writers during this semester. They graduated from NTU. He graduated from Furen Catholic University in New Taipei City. He graduated from Department in the Graduate Institute of Chinese Literature. So he's, in a sense, he's a very well-trained writer. Okay, and he used to be an instructor of Chinese literature in the university, and he's a host of TV programs and now host in the FM radio talk show. Okay, so from Monday to Friday, if you turn on your radio and you tune into FM 98.1, you can hear the sound, the voice of Zhang Da-CHUN from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And I like the radio talk show very much. Okay, so I think if you have chance and you can hear, you understand Chinese, you can tune in the radio talk show and to see what Zhang Da-CHUN was talking about a lot of things. And these three books are the story collections or novels by Zhang Da-CHUN. First one is Wild Kids, two novels about growing up. The translator is Michael Berry. He's a very well-known scholar of Taiwan fiction and Chinese fiction. And in this story collection, there's My Kid Sister and the Wild Child. Sorry, that's the title. It's My Kid Sister, 我妹妹, and the Wild Child is 野孩子. Okay, and just from the title of this story collection, you know what the story collection is about. It's about the stories of growing up in Taiwan, especially in Taipei City. Okay, and then the second and the third story collection are in French. They are translated into French by Mathilde Zhou. The second one is Enfant des Rues. Enfant is children in French, right? And the rue is street in French. So Enfant de rue is the title means kids on the street. Okay, so it's the story of a wild child. Okay, and then the second one is La Stella du Général. The stella means monument, and the Général, of course, it's general. Okay, so it's a very famous story collection of Zhang Dachun, because we know that last week we talked about the postmodern and the urban fiction of Huang Fan. We also know that Zhang Dachun is a postmodern urban fiction, a postmodern writer and urban fiction writer like Huang Fan. So he's one of his most representative pieces of work is in postmodernism is the monument, the general's monument, Jiangjun Bei. It's a story about the personal life and the political and the military career of a general. Of course, he is a fictional general, and it's we can say that this is a reflection on the authenticity of the history of RC. You can say that we know that the first half of the 20th century in the history of Republic of China is at least a series of conflicts between all kinds of political powers. And in this story, we see that Zhang Dachun, although his father is maybe we can say that his father is quite loyal to the KMT government, but Zhang Dachun himself, he posed a very critical and suspicious attitude toward the ruling of KMT government. Okay, so it's a very interesting story. If you are interested in Zhang Dachun, you cannot miss this story. Okay, so it's Jiangjun Bei. Okay, this is another piece of Zhang Dachun's work of urban fiction that I had planned to aid into this this course. But somehow I felt that Wild Child is long enough, so I don't want to give you too much burden. So I only introduce this piece of work here. It's a guided tour of an apartment complex. It's published in 1986 by Zhang Dachun. Okay, so this is this piece of work in Chinese is 公寓导游. I forgot to add the Chinese name. Gongyu, of course, so Gongyu means apartment. 导游 means guided tour. Okay, so this is a very interesting and very scenic story. It's a Zhang Dachun's version of urban fiction. So in this story, we know that although in Wild Child and in the previous two stories written by Huang Fan, first one is Rainy Night, and the second one is Tongpu's Tree. They focus, all of the three stories, they focus on the structure of the city, the exterior structure of the city, the exterior structure. The exterior or urban and suburban structure of the city. Exterior over urban suburban structure, and in this story he focused on the interior or the domestic structure of the city. Okay, for example, in Huang Fan's Rainy Night, we see that in the story, the kid, Xing was taken by Zhan Bumai to all of the places in the city, and later on he was taken back home by Zhan Bumai in the suburban home. And in the second story, Tongpu Street, we see how the suburban area is affected by the development of the urban area in the story. Okay, and also we see in the story Wild Child, we see a lot of places inside the city and in the surrounding parts of the city. For example, we can see a lot of hotels, hospitals, and maybe even gambling parlor in the city. And outside the city, in the suburban area, we can see a casino and maybe a junkyard in the suburban part of Taipei. Okay, but in this piece of work, we see all of the characters in this story. They live in an apartment complex, and somehow they related together, but they don't know about it. Okay, so this is a story with more than 10 protagonists, each of them with a different job. So you can say that in urban fiction, characters are not just characters; they are characters living in the city and they have a certain job. For example, maybe we can say that Zhang Bumai, he's a low-ranking clerk in the office, or maybe we can say that some of the characters, they are students. They have a own job, right? And another feature of this story is it's all of these characters, they are specially connected but socially alienated, including husbands and wives. Okay, and they don't know about the relationship among themselves. Okay, because this is only the narrator Zhang Da-CHUN, or the narrator or Zhang Da-CHUN, the writer himself, know about their relationship, and he's telling the readers what happened from this perspective, from their relationship, from the relationship among them. And finally, we see that this is a story showing a cynic perspective on marriage and morality. Like Huang Fan, Zhang Da-CHUN posed a very interesting problem of the modern urban world. That is the problem of marriage. And another one is the problem of morality, because we know, for example, in Wild Child, we see a lot of immoral characters, right? Okay. And in Guided Tour, in the apartment complex, we see a lot of people. They are not honest. They are not honest people. They are not good people. They cheated on their wives. They cheated on their husband. They cheated on their neighbors, and they cheated on their companies. Okay, so we see a lot of immoral person in this story. Okay, so this is what we call as an apartment complex. It's a building, but this is a building which has 4 parts. So this is the apartment complex. And just from this, the name of this building is quite interesting, because in English it's translated into the fortune building. Fortune means if you can live in this building, it means that you are very rich, you are very fortunate, right? But in Chinese, it's a 富里大厦. 大厦 means mansion or a skyscraper, something like that. But 富里, 富 means wealth or wealthy. Li means means polite or politeness. Okay. But what is very ironic is that all of the characters living in this apartment complex, they are very rich, I think, because they can live in this apartment complex, but they are not very polite. All of them, they are very immoral person. They are not very polite. Okay, so this is the structure of the story. So the story structure is just the interior structure of this apartment complex. So we can see a lot of characters living in this apartment complex, and they live in different floors in this apartment complex. Let's get to the story we are talking about today. the first one is the first point that you have to understand is the narrative and urban structure in Wild Child. It's a story published in 1996. So it's written on the basis of a specific urban and suburban structure. Of course, later I can explain this later on. And like Crystal Boys, it depicts a bunch of social outcasts. But the reason for their being oppressed is not that they are homosexual. The reason for their being oppressed is that they are the members of underground Taipei city, right? Okay, so this is quite different from Crystal Boys. And the main character, Hou Shi-chun, or the Big Head Spring, spring means chun, right? He's a protagonist, a chun who became a part of the underground society as soon as he left school and the family. So the structure of this story is quite very clear. After Hou Shi-chun dropped out of school, he came back home, and after he came back home, he go into the street, and he became the member of underground Taipei city, right? Okay, so this is the structure of the story, and this is the review of the story collection from The Economist. The Economist is a very important British magazine. Okay, so according to this review, Zhang Da-chun is a cultural phenomenon in Taiwan, both as a popular TV host and a best-selling writer. Actually, he said a lot of controversial things in Taiwan, and he didn't like he don't like KMT and both KMT and DPP, and he was disliked by both KMT and DPP government. Okay, his two short novels, also we can say that there are two novellas. My Kid Sister and the Wild Child, now translated into English and published in one volume as Wild Kids. Okay. And this story collection features members of Taiwan's cynical younger generation. But something very interesting is that although all of these stories are written, or both of these two stories are written from the perspective of younger members of the younger generation, but they are not suitable for younger generation members to read, because we can see a lot of dirty words and dirty deeds in these two story collections, especially the second novella, Wild Child. Okay, so My Kid Sister runs through the narrator's adolescence, from the birth of his little sister to her pregnancy at the age of 19. So if you are pregnant at the age of 19 in the modern time, it often means that you are in great trouble, because you are maybe you are a single mother, right? Their family is dysfunctional in the uniquely Taiwanese East meets West way, combining Freudian angst, children and the parents, with comic walk-on parts of the barriers of Chinese tradition, grandparents. But we don't see a lot of parts in the story. Wild Child have this grandparents in the story, and Wild Child is a darker episode in which 14-year-old Hou Shi-chun drops out of school and runs away from home. After falling into the Taiwanese underworld, he encounters other confused youngsters. Old Bull, Little Horse, or Old Bull means Gugu, and Little Horse is Xiaoma, and Apricot is Mei Xin. And we can say that Old Bull, they belong to the same gangster group, but they have different roles. For example, Old Bull and the Little Horse, they are mobsters, and Apricot is one of the prostitutes in this story. Although not unlike Holden Caulfield's lonesome voice in J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. Catcher in the Rye is a very important younger generation novel written by Salinger, 麦田捕手, right? Is very important because we know that in this story, the young character, Holden Caulfield is we can see he dropped out of school in the story. Mr. Ho's narrative is a more brutal depiction of the spiritual vacuum of Taiwanese youth. Okay, so what is the spiritual vacuum? I think the reason for this spiritual vacuum is because during the early part of 1980s and the middle part of 1990s, Taiwan's society changed into an urban world, and the agricultural society became and commercialized and the capitalist society. So a lot of things changed. Especially the relationship between father and son, mother and son, and maybe the relationship between teachers and students changed. So we have a lot of problems during this early phase of the urban world in Taiwan. Okay, so we can see a lot of social problems in this story collection. In Wild Child, we see a lot of characters, but basically they are from two different mobsters group. The first group is led by Horsefly, Meng Ge. He's the boss, mobster boss of this first group. And the Little Fly and Adi Bo are his two bodyguards, and they are more aggressive than all of the other characters in this story. And another group is led by Uncle Xu Shu. Okay, and this leader, Uncle Xu, has many mobsters. For example, we see Annie and Hoop and Apricot. They are female characters. And Annie, he's a widow of a deceased mobster boss. And we also see Obo, Gugu, Zheng Azhi. Zheng Azhi is the first character encounter Hou Shichun after he left home. Okay, and Little Horse. Okay, 小马 Little 新疆 小新疆 and Bull Boy, of course. Bull Boy is a nickname for Hou Shichun. Of course, we can see a lot of interesting characters. For example, Zheng Azhi, he had two different eyes. I don't know whether you remember that. He had two different eyes, one smaller and one bigger, right? And he can see ghosts, right? He can see a lot of ghosts. And the Little Horse is one of the good friends of Bull Boy or Hou Shichun, and his father actually is a doctor. Okay, so that makes us wonder why a boy from a rich family became a mobster. Okay, so this is I think this is another social problem in this story. And we also see Little Xinjiang. Little Xinjiang, he is an American face. He looks like American, but he cannot speak English. He's a Taiwanese. So maybe just from face we know that maybe his mother had an affair with a foreigner, so he had a foreign face. So he's a Little Xinjiang. Okay, these are the friends and the fellow mobsters of Hou Shichun. So when we read this story, I think I have to emphasize the function of a socialized space in this story. Okay, so when I say the space, especially the urban space, is socialized. I mean, space is the place where humans engage one another as individuals or communities. And the space is always shaped by containing social institutions. So in the space is not just a place, a physical space. It's not just a physical entity in which many of the locations are situated. space is a socialized space in which social institutions, social relationship took place. Okay, so for example, in space, in this urban space of Taipei, we can see elements of antagonism, especially in this story is the antagonism between the gang of Horsefly and the gang of Xu Shu, Uncle Xu, right? Okay, so in these sections, in these chapters, we can see this kind of antagonism. For example, in the chapter games, we can see the showdown in the casino between these two groups of people, right? And in the chapter named Hanggang, we can see that the group led by Xu Su, they had a hanggang from the policeman, the dead policeman, young river, right? And this creates problem for them. And we can see that in the chapter named The Hotel, many of the characters in Xu Su's group, they hid in hotel for 6 days, right? And in the final showdown of these two groups, the negotiation, the chapter named The Negotiation, we can see that finally the group of Xu Su surrendered to the group of Horsefly, right? Okay, so this is basically this story has two storylines. One is about the Hou Sizhun's life after he left school and his family, and the other is the antagonism between the two groups, and one of which Hou Sizhun is a part of the group, right? Okay. And in this story, we see a lot of places and a lot of places in the space. We see family or home, and we see schools and the commercial building, because we know Hou Sizhun's mother worked in a very high commercial building. These kind of places constitute an institutionalized space, which is in a strong contrast to places such as the garage. It's not a garage, it's a parking lot. Sorry, it's a typo. And the junkyard, and the gambling parlors, and those dingy hotels. From this diagram, we can see a very clear sense of space and places of this story. In the inside circle or the inside square is surrounded by an outer square, right? We have we have three squares in this diagram. The inner square is school and home. This is a safe place for young boys like Hou Sizhun, but he chose to leave this safe space. So after he left this space, he went into the street, the world, which is much more dangerous than school and home. Okay, and so this street life is constituted by the second square, and we have the third square, which is the suburban area of this street life, because we know that the casino, we see the showdown between the two groups in the casino. It took place in a warehouse in the valley. Of course, there's no any valley in the city, right? And we also see a junkyard. Junkyard is a place for those characters to work or to get together. The members of the Xu Su's group. And this is a junkyard. And this junkyard in Xizi Township, in Taipei City, in New Taipei City, the suburban area of Taipei. Okay, so this is the third square. And what is most important? I think what is most important is the second square, the places in the second square, because after Hou Sizhun left home, he went into a bingo wonderland. It's a gambling parlor in the school, in the story, right? Okay, so this is a bingo wonderland, and after he left the bingo wonderland, he was led by Zheng Azi to parking lot, and this parking lot's owner or manager is just Xu Shu, the member, the group leader of this mobster group, and the parking lot is surrounded by highway overpass, a bowling alley, and the 2 high buildings. These are all the places in the story, right? And in Annie's part, we see his background, his personal background. We see her personal background, her personal stories, because we know that she was originally from Eternal Spring Avenue, 长春路. We see this road, the name of this road a lot. For example, we see this in Crystal Boys, right? That is 长春路, or Eternal Spring Avenue is the location of Grandpa Court's studio, photo studio. Okay, and on Eternal Spring Avenue, we see a lot of whorehouse hair salons. Whorehouse hair salon is in Chinese we say 理容院. This kind of whorehouse use hair salon as their disguise, and actually they are brothels or whorehouses. Okay, so Annie's father was used to run a Buddhist hall of worship on Eternal Spring Avenue, and all of his customers are from these whorehouse hair salons. Okay, so this is another place that which is important in the story. Okay, and also we see a lot of maybe 3 dingy hotels, because after the showdown in the casino, right, we see the members in Xu Shu's group, they try to have themselves in these dingy hotels in Taipei, and we also see the negotiation take place in Lai Lai Sheraton. It's a very famous hotel in downtown Taipei. And we also see a hospital owned by a little horse father, Ma Jianren. Okay, so this is the urban structure of the story. And in this diagram, we see the narrative structure. For example, in chapter 2, the name of the chapter is the beginning. We can see school and home. And Hou Shi-chun, he was falsely accused by Mr. Hippo, Mr. He, of burning the class geography exams. So he was supposed to be responsible for this, but he did not comply with Mr. He or Mr. Hippo. So he ran away from school, and later on he ran away from home. And after running away from home and school, he went into the street. So he went into the bingo wonderland and make acquaintance with all these members of the Xu Shu's group, a mobster group. And in chapter 4, in the heart of the night, we see that Hou Shi-chun was introduced by Zheng Azhi to the parking lot. The parking lot owned by Xu Shu, and the parking lot was surrounded by highway overpass, okay, and other places. And in chapter 6, the name of this chapter is Games. In this chapter, we see all together with the members in Xu Shu's group, Hou Shi-chun went to the suburban area of Taipei. He went into a warehouse casino in the valley, in the suburban area of Taipei. And after the showdown in casino, in chapter 8, the name of this chapter is Handgun, because in this chapter we know that they get these members of Xu Shu's mobster group. They got the handgun, and the handgun belonged to a deceased policeman. Okay, and this is the place for this chapter is the Zhangya in Xiji, right? And chapter 11 is about the stories, the past story or the background stories of Annie. Is we see a lot of places in this chapter, and chapter 14, the name for this chapter is the hotel. We see these characters, including Hou Shichun and Annie and others. They hid themselves in 3 dingy hotels in Taipei, and so the negotiation is in chapter 26, and also the birthday. In this chapter, the birthday, we see little horse. He drove a truck and crashed into his father's hotel, not hotel, hospital. Okay, so that is the maybe we can say this is the ending of the story. From this passage, we can see Zhang Da-CHUN used the space in the story not only as some kind of narrative structure, but also as this kind of space has a symbolic function. For example, in this passage, we see how Hou Shichun tried to describe Xu Shu's parking lot. Okay, so this is a very interesting depiction. Okay, according to the narrator Hou Shichun, these days Uncle Xu runs things at the parking lot. The lot is about the size of 2 basketball courts. In front is a highway overpass. In back is a bowling alley, and on the 2 sides are a couple of buildings over 10 stories tall. If you stand in the middle of the parking lot and look around, you feel like you have fallen into a garbage can. Okay, so what is the symbolic function of this description? It means that maybe from this passage we can already see that all of the members led by Xu Shu, they are social outcasts. They are oppressed by the society, and they are the so-called losers of the society, or the so-called good-for-nothings of the society. Okay, so we can say that they get together in this special structure like a garbage can. Okay, so the ticket box where Uncle Xu worked was like a miniature trash can within the larger one. As Xu Shu scurried out of his box, he looked really strange, peering around in all directions almost like a rat. So we know that Xu Shu, he's another very tough character, right? Because in the chapter named the negotiation, he only had a dialogue with the horsefly, but they don't have any conflict. There's no conflict between Xu Shu and horsefly, right? Xu Shu just accept what happened to himself, and he's not a very tough guy. He's a very cowardice, a very miserable character, street character, like a rat, right? Okay, so from this passage, we can know something about Xu Shu and the group led by himself. Okay, and these are a list of the main things according to myself in this story. Of course, the first one should be organized crime. We can see in the story a lot of organized crime, and these people, many people die in the story, and many bad things done in the story. Right? This is about the organ crime in the urban world. And the second is the problem of police corruption. We know the deceased policeman in this story, Young Weaver, Shao-Chuan. That's the name of this policeman. The reason for his death is because he was involved with police corruption and involved with organized crime. Okay, so we can see a lot of problems of police corruption during the 1990s. And we see the disappearance of Hou Sichun's father. I think this is very important because in Chinese society or in the framework of a Chinese traditional value, father is not only a bread provider of the family. He is the symbol of the family's key values, right? Because if you listen to what your father says and you become a very decent character in the society, you are a good man, right? Okay, so this is the Chinese traditional Chinese way of thinking. Okay, so in this story we see Hou Sichun's father disappear from the very beginning of the story, and his father is the good-for-nothing gambler. Okay, so in this story we go back to another very important thing of modernism in Taiwan, the disappearance of father. Okay, so the disappearance of father is not only the disappearance of father, because it also means the loss of a traditional value. Okay, so we can say that not only the father-son relationship between Hou Sichun and his father, we also see the father-son relationship between Ma Jianren and the little horse. I think there must be something wrong between these two characters, because in the final scene, in one of the final scenes in the story, we see little horse. Before he joined the army, he decided to he decided to drive a truck and crash into his father's hospital, right? Okay, so we can say that this is a father-son problem. And we also see mother-son problems in this story, because we see Hou Sichun's mother was depicted as an indifferent and hypocritical mother, and we can see her behavior in chapter 6, games, and chapter 7, good for nothings, and chapter 17, the poster. Okay. Let's see some of the passages in these chapters. First of all, we see that Hou Sichun's mother was depicted as a workaholic mother, right? Because in the chapter named Games, we see Hou Sichun's reflection on his mother-son relationship. He said that I began to think about my own mother. When you are in terrible pain and thoroughly uncomfortable, imagining your mother drives a smelly van isn't difficult at all. My mom should have been at work. She probably already knew what I had done yesterday, but just like always, he would still go to work. On Tuesdays, she would always wear a pair of gray pants to the office. So we can see 2 points on this in this passage. One is that we know that Hou Sichun's mother did not care about him very much, and the second one is that Hou Sichun's mother might be a very successful career woman, but also a very miserable workaholic, and her life is with a lot of routine, because just from what day is today, that Hou Sichun can predict what his mother wear today, right? Okay, so this is some of the main points in this passage, and this is an imagined dialogue between the mother and Mr. Hippo. Hello, Mr. He. Mr. He, this is Hou Sichun's mother. That's right. Hou Sichun still hasn't returned. He's really making me crazy. Okay. So then, do you think I should call the police? As my mother spoke, I'm sure she was sketching a draft advertisement or scribbling out some document. Who knows? Maybe she was knitting her brows and shaking her head at somebody else, telling them not to do anything silly while she was on the phone. Okay. So this is I think from this imagined dialogue and from the reflections of Hou Sichun, you can sense that for the boy Hou Sichun, the mother was not very caring, right? She did not very care about her. She did not care about him very much. Okay, and in the section named on the rooftop, I think something very. This is not. No, it's another on the rooftop. This is a chapter named "Good for Nothings." Okay, in this passage we can see that as the commercialized and capitalist world of Taipei developed, there's a value of commercialism which is getting stronger and stronger. And this kind of career woman or working class woman like Hou Sichun's mother, they developed some kind of value system which discriminate eccentricity. Okay, so in this chapter, in the passage of this chapter, we see a very strange guy standing on the roof, and we can see the value system of Hou Sichun's mother from this from the dialogue between Hou Sichun and her. Okay. This man stood on the rooftop of the somewhat shorter building across the street because at that time Hou Sichun was spending time with her mother with his mother in the commercial building where his mother worked. But wearing two hats was nothing because he saw the guy was wearing two hats. Wearing two hats was nothing. Most outrageous was the fact that he was wearing several layers of clothes. There must have been somewhere around 50 layers. Of course, this is some kind of exaggeration. This guy's pants were even more ridiculous than his shirts and jackets. It's not lot, it's than his shirts and jackets, because the guy not only wore two hats, he wore a lot of jackets and coats, maybe 50 layers of jackets and coats, jackets and shirts. He wore the shorter pants on the outside and the longer ones on the inside. So you could see crystal clear that he was wearing at least 5 or 6 pairs. Okay, so this is some kind of a very strange character in this story. Okay. That guy, it turned out, was sunbathing and singing on the rooftop. Here's the comment of Hou's mother on him. Oh God, another loser. Because from the mother's perspective, that guy is a loser, maybe like her husband. As she spoke, my mother patted my shoulder. What's one to do? These days, there are more and more of these characters in Taiwan. Is he insane? I asked. Well, he's got to have a screw loose somewhere. Of course, from the mother's perspective. If you don't, and the mother said, if you don't study hard and work hard, that's how you end up. Got it? Okay. So this is the way Taiwanese parents always lecture our kids. If you don't study hard and work hard, blah 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 blah, you will end up blah blah blah, something like that. Okay. And I'm like what? Because from the kids, from Hou Sichun's perspective, there's completely nothing wrong with being a strange guy like that, right? Because from his own perspective, that guy was just sunbathing and singing on the rooftop. What's wrong with that? But for his mother, for Hou Sichun's mother, it is something wrong, right? Okay. So, and I'm like what Hou Sichun said. And his mother said that end up a loser. Okay, so his son did not quit. His son asked further that is there something wrong with being a loser? Okay, so this is a tough question to answer because even the mother herself cannot answer this question properly. So the mother said that okay, So maybe there's nothing wrong with being a loser, but sooner or later, if you are a loser, you could hurt people around you, hurt your family, hurt your friends. So that's something wrong. That's what's wrong with being a loser. Okay. So I think this is the best answer that the mother can could come up with, right? Okay. So I think, but I don't think this is a very appropriate or a right answer, because I don't think we should judge whether someone is a loser or not by this kind of standard, at least from my own perspective. Yeah. In the process of reading this story, I think we can ask ourselves, is she a responsible mother? I don't think she's a very responsible mother, because if I were her, after my son left home and left school, I would try to find him. But his mother, like I said, his mother, she's a very hypocritical character. She's not a very responsible mother. Okay, so from this news report, we know that Hou Sichun's mother did not try to find him, but he divert her own efforts to other things. Okay, so according to the news report, commercial queen Jade Aroma Chen, I think this is something very interesting, because the main character Hou Sichun's mother is named Chen Yufang. Okay, so usually we translate this into Chen Yufang, something like that. But the translator Michael Berry chose to use other approach of translation. He translated it into Jade Aroma Chen. Okay, so this is something not very like other translators. Okay, commercial queen Jade Aroma Chen is a well-known figure who actively take part in various activities for the public welfare. Okay, having experienced the misfortune of a failed marriage, she threw herself wholeheartedly into her career in the social world. But in the end, who could predict that she would neglect properly disciplining her own son? Recently, her only son, Hou Sichun, suddenly disappeared without notice, running away from home. Not long before, Hou Sichun was involved in a case of damaging public property on his school campus. Moreover, owing to harbor resentment, the accused student went so far as to assault a teacher. So this is what's wrong with Hou Sichun's mother, because we know that actually Hou Sichun shouldn't be responsible for burning those exams, right? Because the class geography exam was not burned by Hou Sichun, and the reason why he tried to fight with the teacher, Mr. He, is because Mr. He abused him earlier, right? Because Mr. He abused him first. Okay, so the mother did not try to figure out what's really wrong with her son, and he just tell the story to the reporter, and the reporter, of course, the reporter cannot understand what's really wrong with Hou Sichun. Okay, so as ill fortune has already befallen Miss Chen, Mrs. Chen. She has resolved to draw a lesson from her painful experience. Mrs. Chen has bravely stood up. She has taken her own bitter experience as the inspiration in the theme in designing a fundraising activity poster for the New Era Culture and Educational Foundation, which has long been concerned with problems facing today's adolescents. She writes, "My child, your mother is here. Your family is here. The road back is in your heart. Give your mother a chance. Let us grow together." Okay, but I think let's that's very interesting because in the news report, Hou Sichun's mother is depicted as a very caring mother, a very mother who is very anxious about seeing her son again. But I don't think it's the reality of reality of this event. It's not true, because Hou Sichun himself, he also questioned his mother. Why don't you just go on eternally searching for me? Because in the story we did not see Hou Sichun's mother have some kind of action in finding the son, right? Okay, so this is something wrong with the mother-son relationship and also the father-son relationship. Okay, so this is the lecture on Zhang Da-CHUN. Okay, so I think it's quite interesting because in the when I was designing this course, I tried to include some of the stories written with narrators who are children, or the main characters, they are children. For example, in Mirrors of Peking, we see the narrator. We see the main character is Yingzi, right? She's the biggest children he's the biggest child in the family. And also we see the main character, the unnamed narrator of Tongpu Street. He's also one of the, maybe we can say that he's a school student. And in this story we also see many young characters, and one of them is a middle school student, like Hou Sichun. Okay, so it's very interesting to compare all these young characters in the stories, and especially they are all main characters in the story, in the story with a very specific urban setting. Okay, so if you don't have anything to say about this story, I think maybe we can call it a day.